Hi, first graders. My name is Mrs. Malmos. I'm a first grade teacher at Paddock Road. I've been teaching for 9 years, and we are going to get to work together this semester on our writer's workshop, and I'm excited to work with you. Before we went on our winter break, we were working in a response unit during writer's workshop, and this week we are going to finish up our response unit. I know that by this point you've probably had lots of practice with it, but since we've had a break, we're going to review what the features of a great response are. And the first thing that a great response needs is a title. Every great response also needs an introduction. It will tell what the person thinks about the text with 2 reasons: a like, a dislike, a connection, a wondering, or a question that you're still having. It has a conclusion to all tie it up together at the end, and there might be photographs or pictures. In our classroom, this is behind me the graphic organizer that we've been using, and I will attach it to your seesaw activities so that you can use it too, or if you just want to use lined writing paper at home, works great too. We will be responding to some read-alouds this week, so I'm going to start with this story named Swimmy, and we'll get to respond to it together at the end. This is Swimmy by Leo Leone. A happy school of little fish lived in a corner of the sea somewhere. They were all red. Only one of them was as black as a mussel shell. He swam faster than his brothers and sisters. His name was Swimmy. One bad day, a tuna fish, swift, fierce, and very hungry, came darting through the waves. In one gulp, he swallowed up all the little red fish. Only Swimmy escaped. He swam away in the deep, wet world. He was scared, lonely, and very sad. But the sea was full of wonderful creatures, and as he swam from marvel to marvel, Swimmy was happy again. He saw a Medusa made of rainbow jelly, a lobster who walked about like a water-moving machine, strange fish pulled by an invisible thread, a forest of seaweeds growing from sugar candy rocks, an eel whose tail was almost too far away to remember, and sea anemones who looked like pink palm trees swaying in the wind. Then, hidden in the dark shade of rocks and weeds, he saw a school of little fish, just like his own. "Let's go and swim and play and see things," he said happily. "We can't," said the little red fish. "The big fish will eat us all." "But you can't just lie there," said Swimmy. "We must think of something." Swimmy thought and thought and thought some more. Then suddenly he said, "I have it. We are going to swim all together like the biggest fish in the sea." He taught them to swim close together, each in their own place. And when they had learned to swim like one giant fish, he said, "I'll be the eye." And so they swam in the cool morning water and in the midday sun and chased the big fish away. The end. Okay, so I am going to grab a marker real quick and we are going to work on our graphic organizer together. So go ahead and take this time to grab your materials. And I know that the first part of a great response is to have a title. So I'm going to use the title from our book and I'm going to put Swimmy at the top. So when I pull this response back out, I will know that this was for the book Swimmy that we read. The first box is for our introduction, what we thought about the story. And I'm going to write that I think this was an interesting story. I'm going to remember my punctuation mark at the end. Go ahead and pause so that you can write your introduction. Try and write something that's different than mine. What did you think about the story? Press play again when you are finished writing your introduction. Next, we're going to write a part that we liked about the story. I liked when all the little fish worked together. I liked when all the little fish worked together. Go ahead and pause it and write what you liked about the story. Next, we will write a dislike. Something that I did not like was when the big fish swallowed them up. I'm going to use an exclamation point for that sentence because I really did not like that part. Go ahead and pause and write a part that you did not like. Press play when you are finished writing your sentence. Next, we're going to make a connection. This reminds me of when I have watched Finding Nemo. Nemo kind of reminded me of Swimmy, the character in the story. That's a connection that I have made. Go ahead and make your connection. Tell me, write your sentence about what this reminds you of. Come back when you are finished writing your connection. Next, we're going to write what we're still wondering. I'm wondering if at the end of the story, if the big fish ever came back or if they stayed away for good. I wonder if the big fish ever returned. And because it is a question, I will make sure to use a question mark for my punctuation. Go ahead and pause and write your wondering sentence now. Okay, the last thing that we need to have is a conclusion. A conclusion, I tell my students that we're going to wrap up the story nicely together with a bow. A conclusion oftentimes repeats a lot of what you said in your opening. So my sentence starter says, for these reasons. I'm going to say, for these reasons, you should read this interesting story about Swimmy. Okay, go ahead and write your conclusion. The last thing that a great response can have is some pictures or photographs. So I leave this box blank for my students to draw their pictures that match their words. You can do the same thing at home. But before we get started with that, I want to go back and read my response all together. I am checking to make sure that my words make sense, that I did not miss any words, and that I have all of my punctuation. Swimmy. I think this was an interesting story. I liked when all the little fish worked together. I did not like when the big fish swallowed them up. It reminds me of when I have watched Finding Nemo. I wonder if the big fish ever returned. For these reasons, you should read this interesting story about Swimmy. Okay, at this time, go ahead and check your response for all of those things. Check your punctuation, check to make sure that your writing makes sense, and when you are finished, you may draw a picture that matches your words. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll write a response together again tomorrow.